Hi folks, how you doing? It's James JT at the movies and I'm back with you for another ranking video. Sadly, this is a ranking video inspired by some bad news that we received in the community. Well, everywhere really, but I imagine those of us that are in the community and fans of Bruce Willis will have been the ones that have maybe taken this harder than others. But yeah, we got the sad news last year, didn't we, that Bruce Willis would be retiring due to health conditions, and that the films that were scheduled to be released for him would be the last that we'd see him in, playing an active role, which was sad news, but obviously wished him all the best for his health. And then we got the update a couple of weeks ago that his condition had worsened and that he now had full-blown dementia, and was starting to, sort of suffer from that, unfortunately. And it really got me thinking, did that announcement. Obviously, it was really sad, and my heart goes out to Bruce Willis and his whole family, and I wish him nothing but the best, and I hope that his family are doing all right, that he's doing as all right as can be, and that he's getting all the help and support that you can get for for such sad news, really. But like I say, it got me thinking about the absolute wealth of material and the legacy that he leaves behind now he's retired, and got me thinking about what are some of my favourites that he's ever done. And I thought that I'd do my top 10 Bruce Willis movies, just to share my thoughts on them, really. Really, I'm enjoying making these sort of top 10s and ranking videos as well, so I think I'm going to do these a bit more regularly, maybe try and get one or two of these out a month in and amongst the hauls and movie reviews and whatever else I might do. But yeah, let's jump into that. So I'm going to do a top 10 list. I'm not going to do any honourable mentions or anything like that, because I'll be here all day and then it stops being a top 10 list then, really, and I'm just talking about Bruce Willis's filmography. But I wanted to sort of, narrow it down and sort of pick some of my favourites. There really is too many to mention, so you'll have to let me know down below what your favourites are. And again, quoting my good buddy Carl, it's not the right list, it is just my list, so I hope you enjoy it and you'll have to let me know yours, like I say. So we'll start the list off with my number 10, and that is Hudson Hawk, where Bruce Willis plays a thief that's just recently been released from prison and gets basically roped back into doing one last job. And it's one of those films where it starts off fairly sensible, and then as they're committing the first robbery, first heist in the film, you sort of realise how quirky the character of Hudson Hawk is when the chap that he's committing the robbery with, it's Danny Aiello, I think, isn't it? I hope it is, and if not, there'll be a do for underneath correcting me. But he's there committing the robbery, and the bloke's like, well, you do realise we can use a watch to time it. And he's like, no, we're gonna we're gonna do what we used to do, and we've got, what's he said, we've got 5 minutes and change to do this. So they sing, would you like to swing on a star? And it becomes a musical number as they're like, dodging security and sort of breaking through doors and doing whatever else. And it just, the film just expands from there and just becomes this absolutely hilarious, brilliant adventure where I think Willis absolutely shines in the role. He plays opposite Andy McDowell, who sort of plays like the female lead love interest sort of character in it, and I just think the chemistry works really well between all the leads there. I've not watched it for a few years now, but whenever it is on, I always do enjoy it. So in at number 10, I've put Hudson Hawk. In at number 9, now this one was one that came to mind straight away when I was making this list, and it's Striking Distance. I've only seen it the once, but it left a really good impression on me. And Bruce Willis is playing a cop, and he basically gets involved in a bit of a controversy that's going on with another disgraced cop, and it's the story of finding out what's gone on with the other disgraced cop and sort of working out how Bruce Willis's character sort of factors into it. And it's got a young Sarah Jessica Parker in it in one of her first starring roles, and she's really good. It's a pretty much by the numbers action film, but I just remember it making such an impression on me when I watched it that I had to include it in this list. And I wanted to put it at number 9 just over Hudson Hawk because it's left more of an impression on me, I think, than Hudson Hawk has. So there we are at number 9. I would thoroughly recommend checking out Striking Distance. Another comedy now from Bruce Willis, and he's kind of a bit of a secondary character in this, really. The leads are very much played by Goldie Hawn and Meryl Streep, and of course that gives it away that my number 8 pick is Death Becomes Her. And he plays the lover of both of these ladies who find basically the secret to eternal life, and they both end up sort of competing for his affections. And hilarity ensues as, you know, they basically try, these two ladies, to kill each other, but realise that they can't because of, you know, obviously that they found the secret to eternal life, and he's just caught in the middle of it, and he's just completely horrified by the events that he finds himself in. And Paul Bruce, like I say, he's sort of overshadowed a bit by, you know, these two acting heavyweights, you know, these two fantastic ladies leading it. But nonetheless, it's a great film, and he plays his part perfectly. And this is one that I do come back to probably once every 18 months, couple of years or so, because it's just so easy to watch, and the jokes always land. This was one that me and my sister always used to watch when we were growing up, and yeah, absolutely nothing but fond memories whenever I watch this film, and thoroughly enjoy it. But yeah, absolutely. In at number 8, we've got Death Becomes, a really, really great film. Number 7 is one of Bruce Willis's more recent efforts. I say more recent, it's about 10 years, 15 years old maybe. And it's where he teams up with Helen Mirren, John Malkovich and Morgan Freeman to adapt the graphic novel Red, which is retired and extremely dangerous. And he plays a former spy in that gets again involved in a set of circumstances that he doesn't really want to get involved in, but he also gets his sort of... I suppose you'd have to call her his girlfriend that she ends up being by the end of the film, but it's really just the lady that works at the pension company that he likes ringing, and he's so fond of her voice over the phone that he rings every week with, you know, problems with his account just so he can speak to her, and he inadvertently ends up getting her involved in this whole mess, and so ends up setting out to sort of save her and find out what's going on, and ends up recruiting in his old pals who, you know, as the aforementioned, and it's just a great action film. Carl Urban's in there as sort of one of the antagonists, and Brian Cox has a small role in it, and, you know, Morgan Freeman, Helen Mirren, John Malkovich, they're all absolutely superb alongside Bruce Willis in it. It's hilarious, the action's great. I didn't mind the sequel, but I prefer the first one, you know, of the two of them, and that's why I've chosen to include this one on this list. So yeah, coming in at number 7 is Red. The next one in at number 6 is The Last Boy Scout, and this was a film when I was sort of looking through Bruce's filmography and sort of thinking about the ones that I've really enjoyed. And again, it's a bit like Striking Distance, where I've only seen this the once, and I watched it with my dad growing up, but I had such a great time with it. And, you know, sort of I see quotes of it, you know, and there's scenes of it that end up on like TikTok reels and things like that, and I'm immediately transported back to that time watching it with my dad. I think that's the impact and the mark of a good film, isn't it, really, when you've enjoyed a performance. And in this film he teams up with Marlon Wayans, and they have some fantastic chemistry together. I'm not sure whether they got on in real life or not. I might be confusing that with something else, but I'm getting a memory of reading something somewhere that maybe they didn't get on together. I could be wrong. Correct me down below, folks, in the comments if I am. But yeah, I had a great time watching that one with my dad years ago. I've got it on DVD somewhere in this lot behind me, and it won't have to be too long before I revisit it. But in at number 6 is The Last Boy Scout. In at number 5, again, is a film where Bruce plays more of a supporting role, really. But the film is just a heavyweight film, and it's full of amazing talent from the early 90s. It's Quentin Tarantino's Pulp Fiction, and he plays the fighter Butch, and we get this whole little story with him in the middle, where, you know, he's working for he's working for Marcellus Wallace, and he's been paid to throw the fight so that it'll earn the relevant people money, but his pride's saying to do better than that, and so he doesn't throw the fight, and then he ends up getting caught up with Wallace at Zeb's gun shop, doesn't he? And there's the whole bit there that's been spoofed so many times. The Simpsons is the one that springs to mind.
As soon as Zed gets here, the party will begin.
And he has this whole sort of great little story that's in the middle of the film that sort of connects the beginning and the end. And he's just brilliant in it. It's absolutely fantastic. And obviously, I know it's not him that plays opposite Christopher Walken in the sort of the prequel scene about the watch, but you really see the emotion carry through in Bruce Willis's performance when he's talking about the watch. And it's like, you know, there's a lot of people went through a lot to get me that watch, and it's just absolutely just love him in that. He's one of the memorable parts of a very memorable film anyway. So in at number 5, I put Pulp Fiction. Now, here we go. We're into the top 4 now. And in at number 4, we have one of my favourite sci-fi movies, one of my favourite time travel movies, and one of my favourite performances from Bruce Willis ever. It's 12 Monkeys, and what a fantastic film this is. It's actually quite spooky watching this film now, given everything we've been through with the pandemic, and given the plot of this film. It's actually quite sort of spooky how close to life, like, you know, it ended up being. But basically the plot of the film is that Bruce Willis is a convict in the future who is sent back in time to try and sort of find the source of a deadly disease being released into society and changing the world as we know it. And they believe that it's Brad Pitt's character that is doing the dirty work back in the past, so they end up dropping him back into several points in the past to try and interact with Brad Pitt along the way to find out what's going on, and when he plans to release the virus of the 12 Monkeys. And if you've not seen it, I won't say any more about what happens, but it's really great. You know, he meets sort of several characters along the way, and I forget the lady's name that plays the sort of the love interest, but she's the psychiatrist who sort of, you know, first finds him when he ends up in a mental institution, because he ends up back in, you know, then 1990, spouting that he's from the future and that there's going to be a virus to end the world, and you can imagine how well that goes down. But then as she slowly starts to uncover the truth and believe what he's saying and realise what's going on, sort of thing, it's really, really great. Directed by the fantastic Terry Gilliam from Monty Python fame, and it's part of an unofficial trilogy as well, along with the Zero Theorem and Brazil, all again directed and written by Terry Gilliam. It's been adapted into a series which I've not watched yet, but I've heard good things about. But this film was one of the, again, like when I've mentioned with the Last Boy Scout and Striking Distance, the first time I watched it, I was like, oh my God, this film. Thoroughly enjoyed it. But this is one that I do come back to very regularly. It's, like I say, it's one of my favourite time travel movies just in general, are a real favourite of mine. And this is one that just absolute chef's kiss, just absolutely fantastic. I adore it. Go check it out if you've not seen it. In at number 3, we have the classic The Christmas Movie, and I won't hear otherwise. It is a Christmas movie. We have Die Hard, the original Die Hard, and this was a film that really sort of launched Bruce's career into movie stardom. Yes, he'd been doing the TV stuff with Moonlighting before. He'd even, you know, sort of dabbled as a singer. He put out a couple of albums, one of which I've got a couple of times actually. I've got the vinyl and I've got the CD of it, The Return of Bruno. In particular, my favourite on that album is where he sings with the Temptations, Under the Boardwalk. Really great stuff. But that is a complete tangent that we've gone on there. This film, Die Hard, was the one, like I say, that really sort of catapulted him into being sort of like A-list sort of movie star, action star. And it's actually a sequel, is this film. A lot of folk don't know that. But there was a film in the 60s with Frank Sinatra called The Detective, and this film is actually a sequel to that film. They were contractually obliged to offer the role of John McClane back to Frank Sinatra before they could offer it to anybody else. Obviously, Sinatra, being an old man at the time, declined and gave up his rights, and so they reworked the film and turned it into the story that we all know and love to be Die Hard. This film's just a classic, and it really showcases just how good Bruce Willis can be as a leading action hero. He carries, you know, the entire movie most of the time with just him on the screen, you know, and there's a lot of scenes in it where he's just talking to himself and thinking out loud, and, you know, it really just absolutely, you know, he sells every scene of it, the anger, the frustration, the passion, the emotion of it. And then, you know, you buy that he really does love Bonnie Bedelia's character. You buy that he could genuinely handle himself in a fight and take on these terrorists as, you know, a one-man army. The chemistry that he has with Alan Rickman as the villain and Reginald Val Johnson, you know, as Al outside, it all just works. It's all perfect, and I love coming back to this film every Christmas and watching it. And so that is Die Hard in at number 3. So in at number 2, we have a film which for the longest time I wanted to spawn a series and have sequels and an anthology of these films, because I loved it so much, and that is Unbreakable, where he plays David Dunn, a man who is the sole survivor of a train crash. and it starts him on a journey to sort of discovering basically that he's a superhuman man in the real world. And he meets, again, teaming up with Samuel L. Jackson, he meets Elijah Price, a man who is the complete opposite end of that spectrum, a man who's born with so many complications and, and illnesses, and he's got a problem with his bones. I forget the medical title, but it's basically like a brittle bone disease sort of thing. And, he only needs to knock his arm or his leg and his bones will shatter. And so he's living in a chair. And the premise of this film is that Elijah's reaching out after the train crash and going, well, I knew that if there was somebody like me, there had to be somebody the complete polar opposite that was almost sort of like impervious to pain and disease. And it's Bruce Willis's character sort of going on this journey into accepting the fact that he's never been ill and he doesn't really have any weaknesses. And, he is actually, to all intents and purposes, a superhero. And ends up at the end of the movie sort of almost becoming a superhero in a sense. He saves 2 kids from like a home invasion, and he's got this ability where he can touch people and sort of he realizes what they've done wrong, and he's able to sort of follow them and sort of right the wrongs sort of thing. But I always loved this right from being a kid. This was another one that Dad introduced me to. And for the longest time, neither of us could remember what the film was called. And so I ended up rediscovering the film in my early teens after I'd sort of seen it on the TV and then was like, oh my God, it's that film. But, it made a massive impression on me, and I just love the fact that it was like, superheroes set in the real world, and it's just, absolutely a great concept, and it was when M. Night Shyamalan was sort of really still on, at his peak, and he has had some good films in recent years, but the quality's not always there, is it now? But this was really when he was at his peak, Signs, Sixth Sense, this. It was absolutely brilliant. And like I said at the start of this, this introduction to this section, for years I wanted this to be, part of a series. And I remember people doing videos on it. In particular, Screen Junkies did one with pitch your Unbreakable trilogy. How would you have it done? And then M. Night Shyamalan brought out the film Split in 2015, and as we all know, he's really, really keen on having his twist endings, isn't he? And the twist ending was revealing that it was actually a sequel to Unbreakable, and then it went on to spawn a bit of a team-up movie called Glass.
Glass? Who gives a shit about Glass?
So in at number 1, you're probably thinking, well, James, what is your number 1 Bruce Willis film? You've mentioned Die Hard, you've mentioned 12 Monkeys, Pulp Fiction. What else is there left that could possibly be at the top of this list? Well, for me, it's Die Hard with a Vengeance. Now, I hope this isn't cheating, because I've obviously already mentioned Die Hard 1. But for me, Die Hard with a Vengeance just pips it to the post. It takes what works about the first and the second films, it builds on it, but it also expands on the way that the character can work, because it's not a bottle location. It's not just the airport, it's not just the office block. He's all over New York City, and he's elsewhere in the States as well as the film progresses, and it sort of makes the city of New York a character. They team him up as well with Samuel L. Jackson playing Zeus Carver, which is just absolutely brilliant, because they bounce off each other so well. They've got such a chemistry when they work together that it's absolutely just fantastic. John McTiernan returns as the director as well. He stepped away from the second one, and whilst the second one is still a really good film, you can tell that it doesn't have the same sort of energy, the same drive behind it, but he returns for this one, and in some some might say it's a little bit lazy making the villain of this film the brother of the villain from the first one, but I think they handle it in such a way where it's they acknowledge the stupidity of it in the film, and the villain even makes it part of his plan. He's like, well, people are going to think that I've done this because I'm getting back at you, and sort of, he's trying to set John McClane up and do whatever else, and then it's actually, no, they've got this whole other operation going on with the gold and whatever else, and it really is just a distraction tactic, and couldn't really give a monkeys, 12 of them. But yeah, absolutely, it's it's just, for me, always been the standout in Bruce Willis's filmography. It's the standout in the Die Hard franchise, and it's the one I would say that I come back to the most often. It was a shame about the two more recent Die Hard entries. 4 was all right. The less said about 5, the better. But yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed Die Hard with a Vengeance, and it is my favourite Bruce Willis film, my favourite film in the Die Hard franchise. There we are, folks. That has been my top 10 Bruce Willis films. Like I say, I felt compelled to make this list, really, just to talk about some of my favourites in his filmography, given that news that we'd all recently received. And again, just want to pass on nothing but well wishes to the guy, and to say thank you for, you know, an excellent body of work that we can all, you know, come back to and enjoy time and time again. If you've enjoyed the video, like I say, leave those comments down below with your own favourites of Bruce Willis's movies and your own top 10 where we might agree and disagree. If you've liked the video, drop it a thumbs up. Lets me and it lets YouTube know to keep making these sort of videos. And if this is the first time that I'm coming across you and you're coming across me, please think about subscribing to the channel. It helps my channel to grow, and it does also mean that I get to know you over future videos as well, which I'd really like to do. Above all else, folks, take care of yourselves, and I look forward to seeing you again really soon. Bye for now.